3 weeks ago, Senator Sessions testified before this committee for more than 10 hours. Throughout that testimony, the American people had the opportunity to hear and learn directly from Senator Sessions that what all of us on this committee already knew to be true because we have served with him for so long. He knows the department better than any nominee for Attorney General in recent memory. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of his word. And most importantly, he will enforce the law regardless of whether he would have supported passage of that law as a member of the Senate. He explained that he enthusiastically is prepared to set aside his role as a legislator and adopt a new role as our chief law enforcement officer. And he told us he'll execute that law with strength, with integrity, and with independence in order to provide for equal justice for all. That's precisely what we want in an Attorney General: equal and fair application of the law. His answers to written questions made all this more clear. And I might add, there were quite a few written questions given to him in addition to what went on during those 10 hours. Senator Sessions answered roughly 700 written questions, including over 350 questions from members who announced that they would vote against his nomination even before they submitted a single written question. One consistent thread that ran through all of his answers is this: he will follow the law, regardless of whether he would have supported it as a matter of policy as a senator. The written testimony that we heard at his hearing tells the same story. We heard from witnesses concerned that the Attorney General must provide full and fair law enforcement. And then we heard from witnesses who have known Senator Sessions personally and worked for and with him for decades. Those witnesses included former Attorney General Mukasey, former Deputy Attorney General Thompson, and lawyers who worked with Senator Sessions for a long period of time. All of those witnesses who actually know Senator Sessions said, in effect, the same thing. If you are concerned with securing the strong and equal enforcement of our laws, you should look no further than Senator Sessions to find an Attorney General that's up to that task. Senator Sessions was asked a number of questions about policy positions he's taken as a legislator. That's good and well. But the test isn't whether or not you agree with policy positions Senator Sessions may have taken as a legislator. I'm going to refer to what Ranking Member Feinstein said in her opening statement at the hearing on this question. The test is whether Senator Sessions, as Attorney General, will uphold the laws he voted against as senator. On issue after issue, then, Senator Sessions made clear that he will. It's important to recall what Senator Sessions said in this regard, quote, "The office of Attorney General of the United States is not a normal political office, and anyone who holds it must have total fidelity to the laws and the Constitution of the United States," end of quote. And everyone on this committee, be they Republican or Democrat, knows Senator Sessions to be a man of integrity and a man of his word. Because we know him to be a man of his word, we know that he will uphold and enforce all laws equally without regard to person, just as he pledged. I'll take a second and address a few questions concerning executive orders issued by the President. Some on the other side have raised concerns about Senator Sessions, whether he was involved in drafting or reviewing the executive orders. It's not clear to me why it would be a problem even if he had been involved. But the fact of the matter is he was not involved. In his written responses to Senator Leahy, Senator Sessions stated for the record, quote, "Neither I nor any of my current staff," and though, end of quote, "had a role in formulating or drafting the executive orders." Ranking Member Feinstein also asked about the department's role, more specifically the Office of Legal Counsel. Of course, as we all know, Senator Sessions is not yet Attorney General. He isn't yet running the department because now roughly 3 weeks and over 700 written questions after his hearing, this committee is still debating his nomination. To me, this underscores that we shouldn't needlessly delay this vote any further. The department needs strong leadership and needs it in place as soon as possible. I'd also like to take a moment to address a criticism I've heard lodged against Senator Sessions that I believe is particularly unfair. As I've said, it's fine to ask Senator Sessions policy questions about votes on legislation, but to imply that because he had a principled objection to a provision in a particular bill, that he therefore didn't support the underlying purpose of that legislation, and that sort of an approach is unfair. Senator Sessions has been repeatedly criticized for voting against the Democrat version of the 2013 Violence Against Women Act. Of course, his critics routinely fail to mention that he voted for my version of that act, which provided stronger provisions for grant accountability and tougher penalties for abuse. And of course, critics also conveniently failed to mention that Senator Sessions supported Violence Against Women Act reauthorization before, when it was brought up in 2005. So to claim that he didn't support the underlying purpose of that legislation is just a rhetorical trick. It's an unfair one and maybe even mean-spirited, and I'll explain it this way. We all know that members of this committee on both sides of the aisle disagree on bills of all sorts for reasons at different times. Every Democrat in this committee opposed my version of that legislation, which included mandatory minimums to combat child pornography and assault. Are we then to conclude that members who oppose my amendment aren't concerned about child pornography? Of course we should not make that accusation. Or what about debates that we've had over the years about legislation that included the death penalty? When members oppose legislation to combat terrorism because that legislation includes the death penalty, would it be fair for us to claim that those members don't care about protecting the nation against terrorism? Of course not. If we were to do that, that would be shameful. There are members of this committee who have principles objections to mandatory minimums and the death penalty. By and large, I disagree with those policy positions, but they are just that, policy disagreements. We can and should have those debates, but we should have them in good faith and not impute a motive to another senator that we know they don't possess that motive. Rather than focus on policy disputes that we've had over the years, I think it's more productive to consider some of the important questions Ranking Member Feinstein asked at the beginning of our hearing. Questions about whether he, Senator Sessions, as Attorney General, will be an independent holder of that office, who will enforce the law in a fair and even-handed way. Those are the right questions to ask. First, will Senator Sessions enforce a law he voted against? Here's his answer, quote, "It is passed by Congress. It would be the duty of the Attorney General, whether they voted for or supported it, to defend it." Another important question, will he use the awesome power of the Attorney General fairly? Will he respect law and the Constitution? Senator Sessions answered, quote, "The office of Attorney General of the United States is not a normal political office, and anyone who holds it must have total fidelity to the laws and the Constitution of the United States," end of quote. And a final crucial question, will he be independent? Will he tell the President no when necessary and faithfully enforce ethics laws and constitutional restrictions? Senator Sessions answered precisely as an independent Attorney General should. He said the Attorney General, quote, "must be willing to tell the President and other top officials no if he and they overreach. He or she cannot be a mere rubber stamp," end of quote. Senator Sessions has assured us that he will faithfully enforce the laws fully, fairly, and independently. These answers, combined with his life of public service and his experience working with each of us, assures me that Senator Sessions will make an outstanding Attorney General. I'm pleased to support his nomination and will be pleased to cast my vote in favor of his confirmation. I urge my colleagues to do the same thing.